In most places in America, local governments don't have any inherent authority, and it's this nerd's fault. Back in the 1800s, Iowa State Supreme Court Judge John F. Dillon established a rule that became known as Dillon's Rule and now applies in the majority of states across America. Under Dillon's Rule, a local government can only exercise those powers that the state legislature expressly delegates it. That means, unless the state legislature deigns to hand down some piece of authority from on high, the local government has no authority in that area. But even though Dillon's Rule applies in most states, it doesn't apply in every state. There's an alternative scheme that sometimes sets out the outer bounds of local authority, and that other scheme is called Home Rule. So how does Home Rule work? Well, it's a good question, and one that's kind of hard to answer because Home Rule works a little bit differently in every state where it applies. But to paint with a pretty broad brush, the way that Home Rule works is it cuts out a little space where local government can act without needing to be delegated any powers from the state legislature. It's an area where they have inherent authority. This area is matters of local concern, which is kind of a slippery term, but generally means stuff that happens inside of a local government's jurisdiction that doesn't have to do with some kind of statewide concern or interest. One way to think about Home Rule is that it gives local government two categories of power. The first category of power is the sword half. This is what lets local governments go out and legislate on matters of local concern, even if doing so has them legislating on things that the state government hasn't expressly authorized it to legislate on. The shield power is what protects these local laws on matters of local concern. The shield half keeps inconsistent state laws from preempting these local laws about matters of local concern. But even in those states that nominally grant local governments both the sword and shield halves of home rule power, state governments have sneaky ways of making sure that in practice they are still in control. For example, the state constitution might grant the sword half of the home rule power, but withhold the shield half, meaning that the state legislature can still override any rule in the local government as it sees fit. Another way state governments will try to be sneaky is by defining the scope of matters of local concern super narrowly. Let's take the Wisconsin case Black v. City of Milwaukee. Milwaukee decided to make a residency requirement for city jobs. If you wanted to work for Milwaukee, you had to live in Milwaukee. The state passed a law that says local governments can't attach residency requirements to their jobs. Who gets to win? Nominally, Wisconsin is a home rule state, but the state Supreme Court still said that the state legislature could preempt this local law. Because even though Milwaukee's residency requirement was literally just about its own jobs, the state Supreme Court still saw the residency requirement as a matter of statewide concern.